All right. Welcome, Whitley and Jared Sharp, to the Solid in the Saddle podcast. Thank you guys so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So, I have questions for both of you. I have so many questions, and I just love what you're doing. So, we'll start out with having each of you introduce yourself. So, Dr. Sharp, if you want to kind of tell your background and your bio, and then Whitley, if you want to do the same.
Sounds great. So Dr. Jared Sharp originally grew up in Western Oregon. My family was actually Christmas tree farmers there, but my parents had horses all their lives, and then we had horses all of our lives. College rodeoed at South Plains College in Levelland, Texas for 2 years, then went to New Mexico State where I finished undergrad. And I think I was driving back to school my junior year when I decided I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was like, maybe I'll get the prereqs and try to go to vet school. So then from there, I went back to Oregon State University for vet school. In my fourth year of vet school, Whitley was in her last year of undergrad, and that's where we met in Corvallis. Work led me to Idaho Equine, where I was an intern for a year. Back to Texas for a few years. I worked at an advanced imaging lameness center where we did MRIs, CTs, and bone scans every day. Got to meet some of, I would say, the industry's best equine veterinarians who I still, work on cases and get to talk to almost weekly now. From there, we went back to Idaho and joined back with Idaho Equine. And then July of this last year, we formed Sharp Sports Medicine with our own brand, the two of us. So that's kind of my quick rundown of how I got to where I am today.
Perfect. Well, congratulations. I would not have known that you guys just started Sharp Sports Medicine in July. All right, Whitley, what about you?
I'm Whitley Sharp. Kind of similar story to Jared. I grew up in Eastern Oregon in a super small town called Boardman. I always tell people it's kind of a pass-through town, but everybody knew the little burger joint. It's called C&D. So that's where I'm from. I graduated from Oregon State University. My degree was in crops and soil sciences, so not at all what I'm doing today, but definitely my passion for horses kind of led me to wanting to go down more of a horse oriented career. Prior, I spent a majority of my career working in equine reproduction. So when we were also a part of Idaho Equine, we also were partners in a place called Outback Stallion Station. So I managed hundreds of mares over the years, in addition to obviously our team, and really focused a lot on embryo transfer. So that was kind of my background, as far as I guess what a majority of my career has looked like. In conjunction with all of that, I have always loved social media and marketing. So now having our own business, that is kind of my I guess main focus, you could say. So I have really tried hard to be a really educational, proactive, I guess page, Facebook being our biggest following, where people can, come to us even if they're not a client of ours, and honestly just learn what all there is out there. Because one of the things, even for me, growing up, I always had horses, but a lot of things always seem like it's some secret, not a lot of people talk about what works for them or what can truly help horses. So that's kind of been my focus of having Sharp Sports Medicine, is to just educate people and get more information out there.
Yeah, I appreciate that so much in an industry where gatekeeping is very real, especially if you're just trying to get into it.
Yep.
You guys are breaking down that barrier for people. So I love getting to follow you on Facebook and seeing just what the new technologies are I live in Montana and we don't have a lot of that. I've never even heard of the things I'm going to ask you about today, some of them. And so it's really cool that you guys are bringing awareness to that to people who might not otherwise have a chance to experience it.
Absolutely. We have really enjoyed it.
Yeah, you're gonna hear me say this so many times today, but I wish that I had found you guys when I had my first year of pro rodeo this year, and I would have done things so much differently. And I wish that I had found you guys at the beginning of my rodeo season instead of at the end, because I think that it would have been a little bit easier on my mare for sure, and probably myself as well.
I think that's just human nature. I mean, we even say like, man, the horses we owned 10 years ago or 15 years ago, or the horses that our parents helped us have. It's like, what more we could have done if we had those horses today with everything that we've learned and gained and added to our practice and provide to our clients, but also provide, to our own horses. It's ever evolving for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's dive in. So we're going to talk about all things horse health and how you guys help horses compete at the highest level. So let's talk about injections first. So Dr. Sharp, can you tell us about injection options? So the ones that I've seen on your Facebook page are Renovo, PRP, A2M, steroids. Steroids are the only one that I have experience with. I know
Sure.
there's so much out there, and if you could just give an overview of those and why someone might choose one over the other.
Yeah, absolutely. So I kind of try to break it down for my clients into three categories. And that you kind of work up the rungs or the ladder, whatever you want to say. The first being just traditional injections, horse that has a little bit of age, horse that has a little bit of arthritis, horse that gets injected once, maybe twice a year. Those standard hyaluronic acid and steroid injections if in a high motion joint, maybe just steroid injections in a low motion joint, are kind of the baseline entry level injections, if you will. Then the next category, some people call them orthobiologics, some people call them regenerative therapy. So that includes a big and growing group of products. And every veterinarian is going to have a little different opinion onto which one works the best. Of those in that category, we provide our clients the option for PRP, platelet-rich plasma, A2M, which is alpha-2 macroglobulin, or the allograft, such as Renovo. So those are products that the first two, PRP and A2M, come from the patient. Their blood is drawn, it's spun down, filtered, and a portion of that blood is then used to inject back into the horse. Typically, if I'm doing a blood-based, regenerative therapy, I reach a lot for platelet-rich plasma. Great for really inflamed joints that we need to protect the cartilage. And so we know that repetitive dose of steroids in joints can be, not saying I don't use steroids in joints for sure, but too soon or in an injured, inflamed joint where a natural anti-inflammatory would be best. A2M, I often use for, and we can go down this path later, but in respiratory cases, they've actually had really good success. And we've even used it on our own horses where you do the same process, just like you are going to take that product and inject in the horse, but it's actually able to be put in the nebulizer. So for these chronic airway horses, chronic inflammatory airway disease, asthma horses, it's shown really good success at being a natural anti-inflammatory that you can get deep into the lower airway. And then last in that category, again, that I use is Renovo. It's an allograft, meaning it's regenerative therapy, but coming from amnion or from a donor horse. It's froze. Initially, when it came to market, you had to have it in like a liquid nitrogen tank, extremely frozen, but they've proven that it can be stable in just a traditional freezer for several months. So very convenient. We have it in our sports medicine trailer on the road with us. I reach for that a couple different scenarios. One would be for a regional limb perfusion. So say it's a soft tissue injury that is too deep or inaccessible from a joint or a bursa injection, and then can also be used as joint therapy as well. And then the last kind of major category is the synthetic joint injection. So that includes my favorite, or the one I reach for the most, is Noltrex. It's a polyacrylamide gel, and I typically reach for those in horses that have a further degenerative joint, um, more cartilage damage, more severe arthritis, where our traditional or regenerative orthobiologic injections are not providing the duration or improvement that I would like. So I kind of use those as I've gone down the further down the path of soreness and management, or the disease process has worsened.
Mhm. So I am guessing it's the same in humans, or I mean, it is in humans where you don't want to inject a joint with steroids more than a certain amount per year, and they cap it at that. So these newer injections, how early can you start them on a horse, and how early do you want to start them?
I mean, I try to stick with the saying or theory that you're not going to make a healthy, non-inflamed joint any more healthy, any more quiet. Um, so I don't try to inject them until I see or find an issue that needs worked on. But regenerative therapy can be used safely in a very young horse. I mean, even young horses that get OCDs taken out, so say on yearling or long yearling 2-year-old scout films, before they go into training, we find an OCD, we have a surgeon remove it to make that joint as healthy as possible, and then I'll follow those up with some regenerative therapy such as PRP to make sure that joint is as quiet and healthy before that horse even enters the training world.
Okay. Thank you for taking the time to go through all of that. I think that's really helpful for our audience to even know that those types are out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm going to segue into TMJ injections. So I had never heard of this until this year. I don't know if there's anybody up here in Montana doing it. What are some symptoms that a horse may need this, and um, what can it help with?
So my first experience from that was actually a horse that Whitley and I owned. That I could follow over a long period of time, and that horse and shows a lot of the classic signs. There's some head tilt when he's even on the walker and the bridle. There's pain to palpation of the TMJ, physically. The interesting thing is when we first got that horse was extremely head shy. The classic, can't touch his ears. Where they'd have to undo the bridle, slip it, way behind his ears, and then work it forward to even get him bridled. And so I think that all contributes to that, significant TMJ pain, but it comes off as that head shy pull pain horse, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
You have something to.
I would say, I mean, some of them, like him specifically, like he was always a winner and would, continue to win, but, he might not take a pull quite as well, like when his TMJ was starting to flare up, or maybe on the backside of the turn, you just notice like a little bit of hesitation, like in his headset, just not keeping it real equal side to side. So like he was one I guess he made us a huge believer in all that injection can do. Only because as soon as we would treat, he would, I mean, it was like the next day, like so many of his traits that obviously we were trying to quiet down would just go away.
That's really interesting. So if someone has a horse that they suspect might have some TMJ involvement, can they send you a video of them with like a head tilt or their head carriage? And can you see it from that, or is it a palpation evaluation you have to do?
It's usually, I mean, a conversation of the clinical signs, what they're seeing, and physical signs that I like to, see. So a few of both of those areas, I guess, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yep, that does. Okay, fill us in on all of your nebulizing solutions. So I'm so sad that I didn't know about these this summer because my mare had asthma and allergies. And so I only knew about Silvoplex. So I use Silvoplex and saline, and I'm just really excited to hear about all of the ones that you have and what you see, how they benefit horses.
So the two main ones that I use, I mean, we use a lot of just straight saline, so that's never wrong.
Mhm.
But there is obviously the A2M that we already, kind of briefly discussed on. So that's natural anti-inflammatory molecule, comes from their own blood. It's spun down, it's froze. There's two different kits. The smaller kit gives you 6 doses, and then the larger kit depends on the concentration in the horse, but gives you somewhere between 10 to 14, 10 to 13 doses. You use the first 6 every other day. So you thaw, split it with equal parts saline, and then immediately nebulize for every other day for 6 treatments, and then you can use the remaining doses as kind of pulse therapy before a big event. You can't overdo it, but I typically tell people kind of pre-large event or maybe every other week during the more allergy, smoky type summers that we all love to live in the middle of.
Mhm.
The other is a compounded product that has albuterol, budesonide, and cromolyn. The budesonide is anti-inflammatory for the lower airway. The cromolyn helps stabilize some of the reactive inflammatory cells down low, and then obviously albuterol to open up their airway. That's a very simple pre-race treatment. Quiets down the clinical signs versus the A2M is helping heal the lower airway, if that makes sense. I'm
Mm.
not a huge silver fan in the nebulizer. There has been some studies in like mice models that silver actually causes more airway irritation. Great antibacterial effects, but the health of the airway when silver is administered is still questionable to me.
Very interesting. I'm glad you touched on that for people that are using it and maybe want to try something else and see
Yeah.
how it helps their horses. So can you just talk a little bit about the relationship of nebulizing and then bleeders, like your bleeder solution and Lasix, and how those two work together?
So the biggest goal with nebulizing is creating a healthy airway for the horse. And so there are, so many factors that contribute to EIPH, but one is chronic airway inflammation or inflammatory airway disease. So anything that we can do before the event, long-term management to reduce the inflammation in that airway will then make our Lasix bleeder mix day of treatments more effective because there's less inflammation already present in the airway. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so the nebulizing is more of like a maybe daily or every other day or weekly treatment, and then the Lasix is just for the event.
Correct. So one is trying to, promote healing and the health of the airway through nebulizing treatments, while the other is just reducing the risk of bleeding. But if you don't control the inflammatory process in the airway, you're never going to control the bleeding.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Do you have any opinion on why so many horses in the United States are bleeders versus Brazil, where they can't use Lasix, but they don't have a lot of bleeders?
That is a great question. My suspicion has to do with fitness of the athlete and the air quality. I mean, so many of these barrel horses run in the summertime when the pollutants are so high, the smoke, the fires, all of those problems.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know that I've seen, like a true scientific paper that proves the exact difference or why they don't see as many as we do here. But that would be my suspicion.
Okay. Yeah, it's so interesting. What role do you think fitness does play? Like for your own horses, and Whitley, feel free to chime in on this. What role does your horse's fitness play, and how do you guys try to maximize their fitness while you're on the road?
I mean, I think besides the inflammatory airway process and those type of treatments, fitness is, the most important. So it is a challenge. We're super busy and we have a lot of horses. But that is something that has to be high on the list of priorities as well.
Yeah, I would just say, I mean, in addition to that, it's, you can have the best vet in the world, but if you're not doing your due diligence every single day to be consistent with your horse, to follow some sort of routine or schedule of riding, and being aware of what you're doing in your rides, if you can't do that, you're going to just continue to have injury after injury, or you know maybe you don't have that many injuries, but your success in the arena just is not going to be what it could if you were very due diligent and consistent, and I mean, just like in a human athlete, I'm sure, as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So what things do you do specifically to help your horses increase their, their VO2 max, increase their ability to uptake oxygen at the highest level? Do you sprint them? Do you do interval training? On the road, it's so hard because you don't have like a safe stretch that has no holes or anything like that.
Yeah. I feel like I can personally get a lot accomplished like in the arena. We have a freestyle walker where I can, put him out consistently every day, even if it's for a light workout, just to create general movement. I feel like, because I mean, we do go a lot and I'm able to run so much. I obviously get a lot of those, the sprints and whatnot in my runs. So like, especially in the summertime when we're super busy, I feel like I'm more focused on, the recovery and keeping them just like feeling good, their legs tight. I obviously am very consistent in what I do, but I might not have to sprint one as much, only because they are being competed on.
Yeah, they're already getting the sprint in their runs. Yeah.
And I always say, I mean, there is the best way to get one in running shape is making runs, and you never want to make runs when they're not fit enough to do so, and you never want to waste your runs. But there's often times where Whitley has, taken a specific horse has, got ran at circuit finals and gets to have a break, and so now that horse is back in shape, and then she's going to duck off and go someplace to a jackpot that we know has good ground and get a few runs before it goes to something where we really are ready for it to compete at the highest level, just because we feel like that contributes to their fitness as well. And so we try to add that to the program.
So what's the time difference between entering one of those jackpots and, say, entering a big rodeo that you really need that horse to be on its A game? How many days in between?
I wouldn't say I specifically have like a timeline, and honestly, I think every horse is different. It's like I have some that you could turn out for a month or two and they look like they've been rode every single day because they're just naturally maybe more muscled up, or just a naturally more fit horse. And then I might have some that you don't ride for 4 days and it's very obvious. And so I think every horse is a little bit different. I do feel I'm very in tune with my horses, so all of them I do probably treat very differently as far as like what their day-to-day needs are. But I would say it's, again, very horse dependent.
And I think that's important to remember, is that from preparing from the contestant side to the going to the vet, I mean, there is no cookie cutter answer for what these horses need. You have to make, I mean, obviously there are realms of our program that we kind of stay in this vicinity, but you have to be able to tweak or adjust the whole program for every horse's needs. I mean, there's some that maybe I pretty much only ride at home. They don't even see the barrels. There's some that Whitley works on the barrels all the time, and then then takes the jackpots or rodeos more infrequently. So,
And
Mhm.
I think too, I mean, just being aware of your horse at all times, like how long did it take them to recover after you ran them? You know,
Mhm.
are they just their nostrils flaring, you know, and obviously it took a toll on them that run.
Mhm.
If that's the case, obviously you probably need to continue increasing their fitness level.
Yeah.
Some of them, you know, when they're in their prime and at their best, it's like they might have just made a run and they're standing there and acting like it was, you know, no big deal.
Yeah, you can't even tell.
Um, and I think it takes every horse a different amount of time to get to that point.
Mhm.
So I mean, just being aware of how they're recovering after you've ran is like a big indicator of where they're at.
Yeah, I agree, and, it's been amazing to me to be able to compare, my older mare and her fitness level to I have a 6-year-old, and just the change in how much I have to ride her to keep her at the top, compared to him. He's
Hmm.
one, like you said, you can leave him off for a while, and he doesn't lose any of it.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's stay on the recovery train because I'm really interested in this. It was very hard for me to come up with a recovery routine for running one horse multiple days in a row or even twice in the same day with hauling. So, obviously you cool your horse out and all of that kind of stuff. Um, Whitley, do you have any tips on that? Just being on the road so much. How do you help? What are your must-dos for
Yeah.
helping
um,
recovery?
I mean, so for me personally, like on my rodeo horses, typically after I run, I'm going to just go back to the trailer, because most of them, I mean, they're very confident, they know their jobs, but once they get to the trailer, I feel like they can, you know, truly relax. So I can you know, get them unsaddled. Obviously, all of mine run on Lasix. I'm a big believer in that. And so I can, you know, give them a half a bucket of water and then I can unsaddle and then I can hand walk them around. I personally don't like walk them out while I'm on their back just because I feel like they just don't settle, you know, quite as well.
Mhm.
So I do try to get back to the trailer and kind of get them unsaddled, cooled off, and then I'll go and hand walk them, you know, through the parking lot or something for a little while until I feel like they're, you know, not breathing quite as hard.
Mhm.
Um, I'm really big on like taking care of their legs. Um, I I mean, I'm like the queen of any topical liniment, spray, sweats, you name it. Like I have probably four of everything in my trailer. So I really try to like after I've ran, depending on like where I'm going or what I'm doing, they either will get like our cherry juice, it's like the leg sweat, and then I'll put standing wraps on them. I might like if I have something that I super early the next morning and I feel like I'm not going to have time to go like hose them all down, I'll do that or I'll do like and then I'll do like a cool mist or something over their body just to kind of keep their muscles, you know, feeling good and refreshed. If I, you know, other times I might throw a poultice on there, but I'm really big on taking care of their legs, packing feet. Uh, if I can, if I have enough time, I'll try to like do the equiscope on them. You know, maybe pre-run or after a run, like or in between days on off days. But if I don't have time for that, I usually always have like my beamer in the trailer and so I might throw that on them before I run. Um
Mhm.
but we're big on just I mean, keeping their legs tight, packing feet, doing obviously doing everything you can in that sense.
Mhm.
And then a big thing that I'm a huge believer in is like the vitamin jugs. So we like in the summertime when I was going a lot this last year, we might do one like once a week. And it's just a good dose of like B and C vitamins. It has amino acids, antioxidants, and then obviously it's a little extra hydration. So that I felt like allowed my horses to um, recover a lot faster. Utilizing those more.
Mhm.
One thing we
And
started doing this last summer too was, I was always the person, if you were at a nice parking spot and you could build your pins, like they'll relax, there's grass, whatever. And we started bedding our horses when we could in our pins. And it was interesting to see how much more relaxed they were, how much more rest they got. Even though you would look out there and like they should enjoy
The
being
grass.
the grass, yeah, this nice pin or whatever.
yeah.
But it was crazy how much, more rested they were before the run. It's like even if we're only here at night, we would do what we could.
Even a few hours, we
Yeah.
would set up pins and just let them sit in there, and
Mhm.
it definitely, I think made a difference just not being standing at the trailer the whole time.
Mhm. Yeah. And so do you set up the portable pens and then you put down your pellets? I saw that you did like soaked pellets.
Yeah, so like in those cases I'll just like throw some normal shavings down, but
Uh-huh.
we use like the portable panels. Um my horses don't quite respect the hot wire like everyone else's do, so I'm the person with like 2,000 panels in the pod of our trailer. Um
Mhm.
but it definitely I guess was a um again, nothing is ever easy, it obviously takes time, and
Mhm.
but taking care of my horses is always my number one priority. So you're
Yeah.
gonna probably find me packing around 100 panels before you're gonna catch me over eating or having a drink or taking care of myself.
Yeah. Oh, I think that's a common thing with horse people.
For sure.
Okay, so that answered a lot of questions because I I agree that my horses definitely rest better if I just put up mine does respect the tape even if it's not on. So I was pretty lucky there. But she did rest better in that than she did in a stall or tied to the trailer. So it's really good to know that that's something that you guys kind of do religiously and you've seen a difference. Um, Okay, so tell me more about packing feet. Do you just do that when they're stalling, or do you do it in the trailer rides too?
We do it in the trailer as well.
Okay.
So like ours will pretty much always have either a soft ride or a cloud boot. I personally don't have much preference. We have some of both.
Mhm.
Um, if I usually will use the animal intex pads. They're just these white pads. You soak them. Um, I feel like they help draw out a lot of inflammation from the foot.
And they're
Um,
Mhm.
very clean, which is
Yes,
nice.
and they're very clean because
Yeah.
I have made the mistake of putting magic cushion in their feet and then putting my cloud boot on, and then
It
I'm
never comes
mad at
out.
myself because I've ruined, my cloud boots that also are expensive, and
Yep.
I will usually do that. If I'm like once I get to like a rodeo or race or something and like they're in a pen, outside my trailer in the grass or whatever, like after I've ran that night, I might just grab some magic cushion and then I'll grab a handful of shavings and I'll kind of pat it in there. And
Mhm.
I won't put their cloud boot on, for that. But usually like those cases I'll use the magic cushion, and then in the trailer anytime I'm gonna have like a boot or wrap or something on there, I'm gonna use the pad.
And sometimes
I don't.
home, the horse has a few days off, we'll pack their feet,
Yeah.
even when they're just rested, just she's between stuff or whatever, and we'll pack their feet for a couple of days while they're home. Typically, that's the white animal intex pads as well.
Okay. Okay, so let's roll on to another common performance horse problem because I know everybody struggles with this, whether it's on a chronic basis or just an acute basis. Talk to us about ulcer management. So I noticed something on your website called esomeprazole or esomeprazole. Tell us about that because it goes in their grain. Is it more effective, less effective than Ulcer Guard given at a quarter tube a day, or what do you guys think about that?
That's an outstanding product. There has been a lot of published research on its efficacy. It is more cost affordable than some of the other options. And I have seen, very impressive results with horses that I confirmed on a gastroscope. Some of the worst bleeding ulcers, gastritis, things like that. So we have made esomeprazole a big part of our both practice and our personal use in our horses. The other thing that we absolutely love, and one of the things that social media has gone wild with too, is the liquid sucralfate from the Good Pharma. Megan Good, their pharmacist there, is exceptional. It's awesome. She is available by phone. Sometimes she's the one that picks up the phone when you call. And I've had lots of good discussions about other products that we want. She's helped develop and make some stuff specifically for us. But they're all with the horse and the user in mind. To my knowledge, this liquid sucralfate that they make is the only one that doesn't like gel kind of turn concrete once you get about halfway or a little bit more through the bottle. So all the year you buy, it's extremely convenient and does a great job. So our horses typically, there's a lot of different ways. I mean, omeprazole in general was studied both at the larger 4 times the dose treatment or the quarter dose prevention. In general, we typically do the larger dose for a long period of time and then manage the horse with sucralfate when they're on the road, and daily CEP gut check is our personal preference. I do, there is still reason to give that quarter dose of the omeprazoles. The hard thing is it takes a few days to become effective. And so you need to start a few days before you go and then through the weekend. Well, then pretty much they're just living on that dose all the time. And so
every day.
Right, exactly. It's kind of like the Previcox thing. I love Furocoxib, Previcox, but eventually it just becomes easier for the horse to live on it because they might have Tuesday off, but then you got to start again Wednesday for next weekend. And so the single dose omeprazole, I'm going to the barrel race, I'm going to the roping today, I'm going to give a quarter tube or a quarter dose of omeprazole is not effective. And so we just for the management of our own horses, and I think I've seen the best success in client horses is do the treatment dose full course. We like the esomeprazole. It's convenient. It appears to not have as much sensitivity to be with food, which is, obviously we give ours on grain. And there's also some early reports that looks like there's less, relapse or the gastric acid after the suppression than the huge spike afterwards. And so, does that kind of answer your question?
It does. And it's really helpful even to know that you can give it with food because that was something I ran into this summer is my mare is on a slow feed 24/7. So it's very hard for me to get the 2-hour window of an empty stomach for ulcer guard. And so it's great to know that the esomeprazole is not quite as sensitive. They don't need to have it on an empty stomach. I don't think it was good for her to have an empty stomach at least.
Yeah, for sure. I do think, people get overwhelmed with, the timing of this can't go because sucralfate does need administered by itself. And so then it's like, okay, I have one medication that has to go on an empty stomach. I have another medication that has to go by itself. And then pretty soon you feel like that's all your all you're doing. And so trying to make a balance between convenience and effectiveness
Mhm.
is what has worked best for us.
Mhm. Yeah, thank you for diving into that. Whitley, can you tell us a little bit about the change in your horse's running since you've switched to the esomeprazole? Have you seen anything?
I feel like there were points in my life when I felt like my horses lived on Gastrogard. Like I would get done with the treatment and then I felt like they were right back to square one no matter what I tried to do to prevent it. I feel like we have, honestly, this is probably the best our program has ever been as far as feeling like I don't have an ulcery horse. And it's not like they just sit in their pen and have no stress. We haul a lot and I go a lot. And so, if there was a time for him to have it, it would be now. So I feel like personally, I mean, um, this last year, kind of like you were saying, was my first year really going to the pro rodeos, and it was always something I wanted to do, but whether it was a time thing or horsepower thing, it just wasn't always in the cards. And so obviously this last year for me personally was the most successful I've been in the arena, and consistently successful. And I think that just, I mean, obviously our vet work and our protocols and programs and everything have all played a huge part in that.
Mhm. Absolutely. How many horses do you have that you run?
I try not to count. I right now I have like 8 that could be entered.
Mhm.
A lot of babies and prospects and stuff coming up, but
Mhm.
we have like 8 open horses. So it's definitely enough.
Yeah, that's a lot of horses to keep healthy. I
Yes.
think 2 is a lot of horses to keep healthy, so 8 is that's amazing. Okay, so I saw that you guys do shockwave therapy. Can you talk a little bit about the benefits of that from like kind of a rehab basis? And then I've also heard of shockwave for bleeders. So if you want to talk about that a little bit, you can too.
I have not dove into the shockwave for bleeders. I know that some people have been trying that,
Mhm.
but in general, I use it for soft tissue injury. It helps increase the blood flow to the area, kind of directs the body's natural healing potential there, while also reducing some of the nerve firings and making the horse a little bit more comfortable. So you can, use it in my hands, kind of two different ways with the chronic courses that we just an extra pain management tool, and then in the acute horses for increased healing and speed of recovery.
Okay. And is that something, compare it to Whitley, compare it to your Equiscope. Is it something that you use like as a rehab like that, or how often do you do those?
That the shockwave is much more like single focused, very few treatments. Like
Okay.
I typically do 3 max every other week, where the
Okay.
Equiscope, uh, more generalized treatment, obviously still very focused on the patient, on the areas that that horse needs to work, but maybe not like I'm going to shockwave this ligament right here.
Okay. That makes sense. And that's really good to know. What have you seen? What kind of recoveries have you seen with the shockwave if you can isolate one tendon?
Um, you know, just in general, I think it does speed the healing,
Mhm.
and but it's only just like everything. This is one tool in the toolbox. It's
Mhm.
not the end all be all, but paired. CSU did a study that people used to be afraid they would shockwave the horse, then come back and do regenerative therapy because they thought that the shockwave, which I understand, it makes sense to me, that the shockwave would diminish the effects of the platelets that we inject in there. And then
Mhm.
CSU actually proved that if you inject your regenerative therapy and then immediately shockwave them, that actually upregulates the effectiveness of the PRP. So it's just a tool to, I guess, increase the speed, effectiveness, and healing process of all the other therapies that we're doing, the bandaging, the regenerative therapy, the hand walking, all that kind of stuff.
Okay. So Whitley, we talked a little bit about the Equiscope earlier, but I want you to dive into it a little bit more. So tell us all about it, how often you use it on your own horses, and what you've seen with it.
Yeah, so we just added the Equiscope to our personal practice. This summer I had a mare get a really bad bone bruise. And so I had reached out and had someone come out to our place and treat her, and then I had another one with an abscess, and it was right before circuit finals, and so I just was trying to get everything I could ready to potentially go with me. And it was, it was incredible to see how quickly, like, my mare who had the bone bruise recovered and showed, very rapid I guess recovery. And she was pretty lame. Like, if you saw her come out of the arena, you would have thought she broke her leg or something. It was very significant. And so we did 3 treatments in a row on her. And she was walking still, a touch off, but not looking like she has a broken front leg. And so seeing how quickly she recovered from the bone bruise after using that, and then seeing how quickly it, like, pulled out abscesses, it definitely made me, a believer in what the device can do. Ultimately, it is just aiming to improve cellular function. So it's putting back positive energy into the cells and allowing them to, like, uptake good nutrients and function the way they need to be functioning. And it kind of auto regulates and reads the body. So it's a really cool and extremely intelligent device. And so I've started to obviously use it more and more now that I have it on my own horses. And each one is different. I wouldn't say I have necessarily like a plan that is gonna work for every single horse, but maybe I feel like something's a little tight in the front end one day, so I can, obviously very easily and conveniently target the front end. And I can, do different treatments that are going to serve that horse best. I selfishly bought it for myself and my own horses, but it's been really cool to get to work on, like, our client horses, whether it's just kind of a pre-performance treatment that's just gonna make them feel good and obviously hopefully run better, or if it's targeting like a very specific injury. So I'm very grateful because obviously Jared can diagnose and know exactly what is going on with that horse, and then I can more effectively treat the horse. And so it's not something that is ever going to replace veterinary medicine. It's not like I'm gonna not inject, I'm just gonna do this to my horse. It's something that makes your injections last longer. It allows the horse to just have less inflammation and higher functioning cells in their body.
And
I
it's
think
a great
that's
complement to, like, the bone bruise, for example. I mean, there's only so many veterinary tools that I have. The use of a bisphosphonate, Osphos, Intelligent was available, those type of things, a shockwave. But then at some point, we've or it's unaccessible via injection or something like that. And so that's really a great tool that complements what's already been done on the vet side to then follow up in some of those more difficult cases or difficult areas to specifically treat.
Yeah, I'm a physical therapist, so I really resonate with that. You know, the surgeon they can do a really great job, but they can only do so much for the
Yeah.
recovery. And it takes a lot longer sometimes than just a quick fix.
Yeah.
So I think it's so cool that you guys can work together where Dr. Sharp, you can diagnose it, find the area, get the imaging or whatever you need to, and then Whitley, you can really dive in and help the horse after all the medical interventions have been done.
Yes, it's really rewarding. And like for me personally, I love like when, we treat a horse. And obviously I love the immediate releases and stuff that you see in that horse like during treatment. But nothing is more satisfying than, seeing that horse either recover or just, maybe it's just a feel good thing that day, but go out and be successful in the arena.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want you guys to talk a little bit about your schedule. So you travel around, and do you have a specific route that you follow, or how can people get a hold of you? How can they get on your schedule?
It varies a lot depending on the time of year, for sure.
Mhm.
Whitley does an exceptional job of social media, and so that's um, certainly where things are posted most commonly.
Mhm.
In the wintertime, we're based at our place in Aguila, just west of Wickenburg, Arizona. And we try to work here or be available Monday through Thursday. And then occasionally, once a month or maybe more frequently, we set up a specific event. We really enjoy working with the Extreme team. And so this winter, we have been to Tucson already. Next weekend, we go to their Queen Creek event. But we don't do a ton of other events in the wintertime. The horses are so concentrated here in the Wickenburg area in the winter, and so having people just come to um, our facility and then be available here is what we typically do. In the summertime or while we're home, I do make some kind of training barn or larger facility stops. Some of them, just depending on the amount of clients that we have and work in that area, as frequently as once a month. Sometimes it's 6 to 8 weeks. And that is a pretty wide circle. Sometimes Central Oregon, um, Milton Freewater is usually a monthly stop for us, kind of right there by Walla Walla, Washington. We went up to Black Rock Ranch outside of like up north by Coeur d'Alene last summer. I go to eastern Idaho to Idaho Falls to a jumper barn there that I work closely with. And then some stops like in Burley, southern Idaho, things like that. In addition to, so that's like a barn. We take our trailer, we set up there at their facility, work on their horses, and then usually have, local folks meet us there. So that way they're saving them the drive. And then
Mhm.
beyond that, we last summer started taking the sports medicine trailer with us on the road to the rodeos. And so then while we were there, we'd have a morning off before night perf, or maybe it was a morning slack, and then we had that afternoon. We would set up and work on horses that were there at the same event that Whitley was competing at.
Wow, you guys are so busy. This is like 100 hours a week. I can't even imagine. Like, it's
Does get a
amazing.
does get a little crazy sometimes. We keep it all straight, I think.
It's a lot,
Mhm.
but it's rewarding. And
Mhm.
kind of tying like some days it doesn't even feel like work, because you're doing something one you're super passionate about, but then it's tied into for me getting to go to the circuit rodeos. And so it's just kind of encompassing everything you love and doing it all at once.
Yeah, absolutely. So did you rodeo in the the Columbia River Circuit?
Yeah, I did Columbia.
Okay. Okay. Did you ever run into Haley Garrison when you
Yes,
were?
yep, I know her.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Haley's from here. She's from about 30 minutes, or not even 30 minutes from here, where I live. So I got to travel with her a little bit this year, and I have learned so much from her,
That's
including all about sucralfate and ulcers. And yeah, she's just a wealth of information. So
Yes, that's awesome. No, I got to know her this year, obviously going to the circuit rodeos and at circuit finals and stuff, and super, super nice girl.
mhm. Awesome. Okay, so what's next for you guys? Are you going to kind of repeat this same thing next year where you're going to rodeo over the summer, Whitley, and then you guys will stay in Arizona over the winter?
Yep, that's the plan. So like our home is in Caldwell, Idaho. So
Okay.
go back to Caldwell the end of March, and then pretty much spend the month of April going to all the big Northwest futurities. And then yeah, rodeos kind of on top of all that. And this year I'm gonna rodeo a little bit harder than I, did last year just going to circuit rodeos. So knows where that'll take us. But that the plan is kind of to do something similar.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's so exciting. All right. So if you guys had each one word of wisdom to give to our audience, what would it be?
That's a hard one.
One word.
Not word, sorry, piece. Like one piece of advice or one thing that you could tell our audience that you've learned about horse health.
You go first.
Expect the unexpected.
That's a good one.
No, I mean that is, I feel like the story of everyone's life owning horses. But I guess, I mean, realistically is find a team, whether it's a team of professionals, friends, a combination of both, that are truly there for you. And it is amazing to see what you can accomplish with the right people in your corner.
Mm-hmm. That's a
Like
great one.
mine, I guess, would be consistency. I would share this because she's a great client, but Lindsay Scholes in out of like the Moses Lake area,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times people would be like, I want you to do what you do for for Miss Edie because she runs amazing. It's like, well, Miss Edie has an extremely committed owner who every time I'm in her area, we jogged that horse and all her horses. And that was before they had a problem, before they stopped working, those horses continue to get whatever they need. And so, I mean, that kind of goes back to building your team, but that's the 2-year-olds that get looked at before they go into training, the horses that get jogged several times a year. And, I understand there's financial limits to that, but oftentimes you're actually financially ahead when it's treated much earlier in the progression. Then you wait till the wheels have fallen off and then trying to patch it back together. Then the list is longer of issues that we have to deal with. And so consistency, it doesn't, seeing your vet, making an appointment with us to go over your horse before there's a problem, talk about the maintenance and management to hopefully avoid. I mean, sometimes they're not always avoidable, but to prevent as much as we can is definitely a huge part in the most successful programs.
Mm-hmm. I think that's great advice. And Whitley, you're always saying on social media, know your horse. You know, that the importance of knowing your horse and knowing if something is off and how important that is. Think about, even in just humans, how if you ignore a pain and keep going without changing something, it just gets worse and worse and worse. So all right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining me today. I learned a lot from you, and I'm so excited to share this with our audience. I think a lot of these terms will be completely new to some of our audience members. And I love that the horse industry is moving that direction where we can keep horses healthier and competing for longer because of advancements in the medical industry.
Absolutely. We
All
appreciate
right.
Yeah, it was awesome. We loved it.
All right. Well, you guys have a great rest of your day, and we will keep you updated on when this one gets posted.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Bye.